Okay, so shall we continue? Is everybody happy? Everybody got food and I know you won't touch it, but you got all the books. Everybody okay? Ready? We'll start again. So let's continue.
Yeah, so this is still the first session. Obviously there's about, I think there's 10 sessions or 10 hours of sessions.
Oh, tonight.
Should be along now.
Obviously I'm not going to go through them all. I've only got this one. This is about halfway through this first session, so there's about 15 minutes or so left on it. But yeah, a little bit later on in this first session, she listened to Betty describing what she calls a star map, because that'll be significant after. So, okay.
My dress was there, and I put my dress on, and I was going to zip it up, and he took a hold of it at the top and pulled it up, and then, I said, I can go now. I can go back to the car. And he said, Bonnie isn't ready yet. And so then I began to get worried, and I asked him why it was taking so long with Bonnie. And he said, well, they were doing a few more tests with him. But he'd be right along in a minute. And there was a cabinet there. And the doctor, the examiner, he had gone out of the room. There was just the leader and me there.
So there was a doctor there, you say?
And the man who did the examining, he did the testing, and he left. And so there was just the leader and me. And so I felt, I was grateful to him because he'd stopped my pain, and now I wasn't afraid at all. And so I started talking with the leader, and I said to him that this had been quite an experience. It was unbelievable that no one could ever believe me, and that most people didn't even know he was alive, and that what I needed was some proof that this had really happened. So he laughed, and he said, well, what kind of proof did I want? What would I like? And I said, well, if he could give me something to take back with me, then people would believe it. And so he told me to look around, and if maybe I could find something I would like to take. And I did. And there wasn't much around, but on the cabinet there was a book. A fairly big book. So I put my hand on the book leader laughed, and he asked me if I thought I could read it. And I told him, no, I laughed too. I said, no. But I wasn't taking it to read. That this was going to be my proof that this had happened. That this is my proof. And so he said that I could have the book if I wanted it. And I picked it up, and I was delighted. I mean, this was more than I'd ever hoped for. He went over across the room to the head of the table, and he did something. He opened up, it wasn't like a drawer. He sort of did something in the metal of the wall. There was an opening, and he pulled down a map. And he asked me, had I ever seen a map like this before? And I walked across the room, and I leaned against the table and I looked at it. And it was a map it was an oblong map. And he said that the heavy lines were trade routes. And then the other lines, the solid lines, were places they went occasionally. And he said that the broken lines were expeditions. So I asked him where was his home port? And he said, where are you on this map? And I looked and I laughed and I said, I don't know. So he said, well then, if you don't know where you are, there wouldn't be any point of my telling you where I am. And he put the map, the map rolled up and he put it back in the space in the wall and closed it. And I felt very stupid because I didn't know where the Earth was on the map. And I asked him, well, could he show me? Well, could he open up the map again and show me where the Earth was? And he just laughed. And then I got the book. I still got the book. I'm carrying the book. I got it in my hand. It's a big book. And so I went back to the cabinet and put the book down and started to look through it again. And there was all of a sudden this noise out in the hall. And some of the other men come in. And with them is the examiner. And they're quite excited. So I asked the leader, I said, what's the matter? Did something happen to Barney? What is that? Well, it's something to do with Barney. And the examiner has me open my mouth, and he starts checking my teeth, and then tugging at them. And I asked him, what are they trying to do?
What were they doing at them?
They were tugging at my
Tugging at
teeth.
them, yes.
Yes. And the examiner said that he was very excited, and he said that he said that they couldn't figure it out. Barney's teeth came out and I didn't. And I was really laughing. And I said that Barney had dentures and I didn't, and that's why his teeth would come out. So then they asked me what were dentures. And I said that people, as they got older, washed their teeth. They had to go to the dentist and have their teeth extracted. And they put in dentures. Or a person, sometimes Barney had dentures because he had a mouth injury of some sort, and he had to have his teeth extracted. All these things you ask me, I don't know. I'm a very limited person when trying to talk with you. But there are other people in this country who are not like me, that they would be most happy to talk with him. That they could answer all his questions. And maybe if he could come back, if we could make arrangements for a meeting, maybe I could, if he gave me time enough, somehow I could find these people and I could arrange for him to meet them, and it would have to be done so there'd be no danger involved. I wouldn't want him to be exposed to any danger. I don't know how I could do it. I don't know how I'd work it out somehow. But if he could come, I want him to come back. I want him to. And he's just looking at me. And will you come back? Can we work out something? And then his questions would all have answers, and other people could get all the things I'd like to know too. And he says, I don't know. It's not my decision to make. So I said, well, could you discuss it with the person who does have the decision to make? And he said, yes. And I said, well, if you do decide to come back, if it can be worked out, I would need time it would take some time. I mean, I just couldn't go out on the spur of the moment and round up people to meet with you. It would have to be people that we knew would be all right and would have the background and all. And I wouldn't even know where to meet him. He said, don't worry. If we decide to come back, we'll be able to find you all right. But I said, but I don't live around here. I don't live in this area. And he said, we'll find you. And I said, how? How will you find me? I am millions of people. And he said, we will. We always do find those we want to. And I said, well, now what do you mean by that remark? And he just laughed. And then, Bonnie's coming. They're bringing Bonnie out of, I hear the men out in the corridor. And I said, Bonnie's coming. And he said, yes, you can go back to the car now. And I got the book. And Bonnie's coming out. And Bonnie's eyes are still shut. Good heavens. He's this awful. I wonder if he made him keep his eyes shut or if he's scared. And so, now it's time to go back to the car, and the leader said, come on, we'll walk back to the car with you. I said, all right. I said, but I wish I knew if you were going to come back. He said, well, we'll see. And we're out into the corridor. Bonnie's behind me, with his eyes shut. There's a man on each side of him. And I'm all ready to go down the ramp when some of the other men, not the leader, but some of the other men are talking. I don't know what to say. They're very excited. And the leader is saying, he's saying something. They're quite, they're undecided about something. And then, the leader comes over and takes my book. And I said, I'm furious. I said, you promised me I could have the book. You gave me a word I could have it. And he said, I know it. He said, but the others object. They don't want you to have it. And I said, this is my proof. If you take the book away from me, I'll have no proof that this has happened. And he said, that's the whole point. They don't want you to know it's happened. They want you to forget all about it. And that's why I'm taking the book. I won't forget about it. You can take the book, but you never can make me forget about it. Because I'll remember it's the last thing I ever do. But I want the book. He won't give it to me. And he said, he laughs. He said, maybe you will remember. I don't know. I hope you don't. But maybe you will. But it won't do you any good if you do. Because Bonnie won't. Bonnie won't remember one single thing. And not only that, if he can remember anything at all, he's going to remember it differently from you. And all you got to do is get each other so confused you won't know what's going on. If you do remember, it'd be better if you forgot it anyway. And I said, why? But you're trying to threaten me? Because you can't scare me, because I won't forget it. I'll remember it somehow. So then he's, all right, now, come on, let's go back to the car. We'll take you back to the car. And, I've been standing there on the side of the ramp talking to him. And I'm not so bad now. And they take him out of your head while we were talking. So the other men are going ahead. And he said, I have no objections to you having the book, but the others object. And they have as much right to make this decision as I do. So I said, all right, I won't be mad at you. But it is the most, I wish I could be able to have some proof of this, because it's the most unbelievable thing that's ever happened.
So that was the first hypnosis session with Betty, and in its entirety. Let's just put this back up. And yeah, the reason why I thought you need to listen to it in its entirety. So if you're listening to that bit, you don't know whether the hypnotist was actually planting suggestions to guiding, into sort of making up a reality. So obviously listening to that all the way through, the hypnotist was he wasn't using any kind of suggestions at all, apart from what I pointed out, which was just minor things, but that was to sort of guide her back into hypnosis. So everything that was coming from Betty was actually coming from Betty. Whether or not that was a real memory or a false memory, obviously we won't know about that. Apart from all the other evidence, if we gather all the other evidence, and then we can make a sort of judgment. So this is hold on, let me sort of zoom in. So this is the Project Blue Book record card. Now, you can't really read much of this, but it basically says that there was actually a radar sighting. The radar picked something up at the same time and place as the actual incident. Don't forget, this was reported the morning after the actual incident occurred. And can sort of... thingy, the person who was writing the report says something like the actual source of light viewed is not known, but it has all the characteristics of an advertising scorch light. So what Betty and Barney saw, he was trying to say it was just an advertising light, scorch light. And the radar probably was looking at some ground target due to strong invasion. no evidence indicating objects were due to other than natural causes. So that was on the Project Blue Book record card.
Nothing to see here then.
So again, it's like Project Blue Book. It was there to debunk and discredit any kind of alien sighting or UFO sighting. Hold on a minute. There we go. So this is one of the drawings that Betty drew after. It says after the hypnosis sessions. Bear in mind that the hypnosis sessions was about 2 or 3 years after the actual incident. And the reason why they went to the psychiatrist was because they didn't know that they were abducted at the time, but they got home and it was like 2 hours later than it should have been. Like there's like 2 hours of lost time. There were scuff marks on Barney's shoes where he was dragged from the craft, and Betty's dress was ripped where they couldn't undo the zippers, what she explained in the audio. And over that next 2 years, it was obviously all this, what had gone on was repressed. The aliens had actually repressed it so they couldn't actually recall it. And that was manifesting into like a post-traumatic stress disorder for both of them.
Were they having dreams and things like that?
Yeah, they were having weird dreams. Barney was, he was having like sick leave off work. He was having long-term sick leave because it was like a post-traumatic stress disorder. So it was making him really ill. And Betty was having all these weird dreams, and she knew that there was something's not right, and so they had to consult the psychiatrist for medical reasons, basically. And this was about 2 or 3 years after the actual abduction, and that's when they discovered like that it was most likely. Well, obviously Betty and Barney believed that it wasn't. Barney was a bit, even though he was hypnotised and he recalled a lot. You know, you can check Barney's stuff online, his hypnosis sessions. Barney was a bit more sort of down to earth, pardon the pun, you know, and tried to sort of discredit himself, basically. But Betty was like more open-minded to the fact that it was somebody from another world that had actually abducted, and that they'd gone through all that, and that experience was real. Now this is that star map that Betty drew after the hypnosis session, so it's about 3 or 4 years later. So it's probably about 1965, something like that. And she explains about the thick lines, or the trade routes, and the broken dotted lines are exploration routes. Now, up until that time, obviously it didn't make any sense, but years later, with modern technology and telescopes and stuff, they actually discovered a star map. And this is the star map that an amateur astronomer, I forget her name, but she saw this newly discovered star map. I think it was around about 1980. And she knew about the Betty case, and she saw the two things and put them together, and she'd actually joined the dots of the lines, basically in the dots, to see if they actually match. And this is the actual star map with the lines, and it's pretty much an exact match. But if you notice in this top bit here, it says Sol. That's basically the sun, our sun, so that's basically where Earth is. But also, if you notice, it's like a thick line, which means it's a trade route. So who have these aliens been trading with on Earth for obviously for a while? So they've obviously been coming here for a lot longer. If you know, obviously this is another good piece of evidence. These lines have obviously being drawn by that amateur astronomer to join the dots. But if you notice, like these 3 dots here as well, if I go back to the star map, they're actually in the exact position. Plus there's 2 more dots which haven't been discovered yet. Whether, it'd be interesting to see if they've actually been discovered now, because obviously that was 1980 or something like that. So bear in mind that you've got the hypnosis session, then you've got the star map as evidence. So it's looking like, oh, hold on. The evidence is adding up to being a real alien abduction case. Now, in 1982, this is very poor audio, by the way, but in 1982, Betty agreed to have a lie detector test. It was shortly after the actual official star map had been discovered. And obviously Barney had died very young. He was only a few years after the incident. I think he died in around 1969. But this is audio. It's only on for about 5-6 minutes or so. But this is audio from a lie detector test that Betty agreed to undertake regarding the abduction and the star map. So it's all self-explanatory anyway, but...
Betty, a polygraph can only determine what you believe to be so. Mm-hmm. In trying to bridge from what you believe to be so, whether it is so or not, I think probably the best thing to use is the star map. At least the star map is something that brings us into reality as those who have never had your experience would know it. In other words, there is a map that you drew prior to the time a couple of stars were discernible, because they didn't have the equipment in 61 or 65 to see those stars, and subsequently that map became validated. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that trying to bridge what you believe to be so and what is in fact so, if we address the polygraph examination to how you obtained the information with which to draw the star map, we might at least strike at some form of reality as opposed to your perception, which you may think is very real, but which may not in fact be real. So if we try to make the bridge with the star map, and we ask you questions along the lines of, did you obtain the information to draw that star map from a UFO, and then reverse it, did you obtain it through any other source, we can determine what you at least believe in relation to the star map. And then what we've been using basically in these areas of psychic phenomena, and with some success, is to ask you whether or not you think this whole thing is a hoax. I think quickly we can strip away, if it is a hoax, your belief that what you're saying is so when you know in fact it isn't so. So I think if we address the examination to those 2 areas, we may at least be able to find out if you believe that what you're saying is so. And before I invite you to take that test, if someone came up to you today, and I'm sure many people have since you've become noteworthy in this area, and said, I had an experience, or I was on a UFO, what do you think of those people today? Are they telling the truth or not?
I would want a great deal more than just a person's word that the person's been on a UFO.
Well, the star map is a tangible product of this whole experience. That's something that has some substantiation quite apart from anybody's arguments against all this.
Yeah,
so I think we could use that. Let's test it. Nothing disparaging, but I would be derelict as a polygraph examiner if I didn't inquire into your general medical health and as far as your mental health. Let me ask you, if you're not reluctant to say, have you ever, prior to this occurrence, had therapy or counseling or visited a psychiatrist?
No. I'm a retired social worker. I usually took other people in.
But you never needed any treatment yourself?
No.
Okay. Good enough for me. Let's try. Do you plan to lie to me about that star map?
No.
that star map information while on board a UFO?
Yes.
Betty's story first emerged under hypnosis following nightmares on her part and an unexplained deterioration in the physical condition of her husband, Barney. A medical hypnotist, a psychiatrist, was recommended, and this is what he found. We can only test whether or not she believes this is a real recollection and not something that she made up or only dreamed. Regarding the original star map information, did you obtain it from a source other than a UFO?
No.
People from New Hampshire are typically swift and direct in their answers. Do you believe your star map story is a hoax?
No.
Test is over. Remain still for 10 seconds, please. This is one of the charts, Betty, that was actually collected on television that our viewers could see. The first relevant question was, did you initially receive that star map information while on board a UFO? You, as you're nodding your head, said yes. And we see in the cardio tracing a downward movement of the blood pressure as shown by measuring blood volume. We contrast that with the question before, where there was a slight upswing, and more notably here in the respiration tracing, we see a very long, sustained suppression when you answered the control question, and almost nothing happening when you answered the relevant question, indicating a lack of stress, or what we call a lack of reaction to the relevant question. Let's go to the second question. The second question was a restatement of the first. Regarding the original star map information, did you obtain it from a source other than a UFO? Now, when you created the star map, I don't believe there were any sources that could have given you those two other stars, but the question is, what did you believe? You said, no, you didn't get it from a source other than a UFO, and there's absolutely nothing happening here in this cardio tracing, showing a lack of stress when you said no to that question. But the question before, we see that you're capable of significant cardio response because we see it here with this tremendous upswing. Here again, the respiration pattern, there's that suppression that we noted in the earlier question, nothing happening in the relevant question. Let's go to the third question, dealing with whether or not you believe that your story is a hoax. What it says, you believe your star map story is a hoax. You said no. Blood pressure's going down. Galvanic skin response shows 6 chart divisions, and we contrast that with the question before, where you had many more chart divisions in the galvanometer, a significant baseline arousal in the respiration tracing. Putting it all together, Betty, you believe what you're telling us, and I wouldn't want to alienate an alien and say it isn't so. All I can tell you is you believe what you're saying.
I do.
We now have an astronomer who backs you up. I guess a whole bunch of them. You can't very well describe stars that haven't been discovered without some kind of help. We have a scientist who's a doctor who went into hypnosis under techniques that he believes were totally legitimate. Came out with this story, showing at least it was in your mind, it was very real, you thought it had happened. We have the time gap, the 2 hours that disappeared from your lifetime until he restored them, and now we have the polygraph, which says you're much more disturbed by general character questions than you are by questions about the authenticity of your story. We can't, even with Steven Spielberg's help, we can't produce a spacecraft, but maybe someday somebody will, and maybe they'll be little and gray. Thank you very much, Betty. It's been a joy.
So, obviously, she's passed the lie detector test to show that she was actually telling the truth, or what she believes is the truth. And so, obviously, putting it all together, the regression hypnosis was actually more forensic rather than the hypnotist actually planting suggestions, creating a false reality. So that reality that Betty actually come out with during that hypnosis session was already within Betty's subconscious. And obviously you've got the star map that she couldn't possibly have drawn. Obviously you could debate whether or not it's like pareidolia, like it sort of looks like it matches up and stuff like that, or you're seeing things what aren't there or something. But it's almost an identical thing to the actual star map, and obviously she's passed the lie detector test. So yeah, that's the conclusion. So are there any questions on anything that I've said, or any questions at all?
In the star map relative to where you would be in space though? Because if you believe that you're in space, you could be anywhere in possession around that.
Yeah, obviously, I don't really know. Hold on, let me just get the star map up again. So obviously, yeah. So obviously this is a star map. So obviously this is the sun, which is the Earth, and yeah. Your question about it being relative, but obviously I don't know how star systems work. You know, obviously.
You've really got to be a bit to the right for that totally look a different thing.
Yeah.
To the left or underneath you.
Because obviously this is just a two-dimensional image, isn't it? It's just a flat thing, you know.
So it wasn't a flat star system?
A flat star system, yeah. That proves that the Earth's flat.
The map she was shown, was that flat as well? Was it like on paper or whatever? Or
The what, sorry?
the map she was shown, was it on paper or?
Yeah, it's like...
wasn't an holographic projection or anything like that?
No, I can see like the paper, it's like all worn and stuff.
No, I mean the one she saw in the
Oh, well,
supposedly.
yeah, obviously, from what she sat, how she explained it in the hypnosis was that the leader or the captain or whatever touched the wall and some sort of drawer come out, and the map was actually on that, but whether it's on a piece of paper or it was...
Because like I say with Nick saying that relative, because if it was three-dimensional, then if she turned, you know, if she was standing slightly to one side, it's like, you know what I mean? If you
Yeah.
I think what I've heard, or as you can imagine, I've listened to was, I think it was like an hologram, I think.
Yeah, see, the thing is...
I thought that, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, when she was describing it in hypnosis in, say, 1964, 65, nobody knew what holograms were, so she was describing a lot of the stuff. She was trying to explain... So...
Yeah, that's what they say when...
But she didn't die until about 2005, I think, 2004, 5.
When people are explaining a lot of things like they say about UFOs, they see the knobs and dials.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily they mean they're looking at knobs and dials. It's the best way they sort of...
That is described from that day.
From 1950.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, it looked like a TV knob, but actually...
Yeah. But Betty's niece has wrote books on the actual abduction case on this, because obviously Betty was very close to her sister, and obviously this is her sister's daughter, and a daughter, Betty's niece actually goes around like UFO conventions with this story, because she's actually wrote a book or some books on it, and she's actually got a lot of the other information that's not available, you know, in the public domain. So I'd sort of look more towards researching what she's got to say on it with regards to the holograms and stuff like that, because I'd imagine it would be something like that. Because obviously, if you try and explain something from like, if we got abducted, say, and you know, in say the year 2300, we'd be able to explain it a lot more. It's like we're in 2024 now, but if we were in 1965, how do you explain an iPhone? You know, or an iPad, or, you know, a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah.
You just couldn't. You just.
You haven't got the frame of reference to say that.
Yeah, it'd be difficult to explain Wi-Fi and everything that we just take for granted in this year. But yeah, holograms is a real strong possibility. He just did something to the wall or something, and a drawer come out and showed the map. But yeah, any other questions?
I don't know, when describing the alien, she just kept calling it a man.
Yeah.
Now, if it was like some kind of like proper like grey alien or anything like that, you wouldn't call it a man though, would you? You would call it a creature or humanoid or a thing or an X. You wouldn't call it a man, would you? If it was a man, it would...
But that's... Now, we know about grey aliens and stuff like... Whereas that was the first ever report of an alien abduction.
But you still wouldn't call it a man though, if he didn't look like a man.
Yeah.
You'd call it a man.
There was films in the 50s and 60s, alien films and stuff like that.
Yeah. If he didn't look like human, you wouldn't call it a man or a human.
Yeah.
If he looked something completely different from a human, you would call it a thing or a creature or...
Mate has his mum, that video that's going around. She doesn't describe them, she just calls them beautiful people.
Yeah. Because she said
they had golden hair.
She describes them very Nordic looking, doesn't she?
But there's been a couple that have described them like that, like wearing like a goldfish bowl and stuff.
You've got greys, you've got Nordics, you've got insectoids, you've got lizard type. But there's all the spectrum of...
But how a person would describe somebody, it's like what I was explaining earlier about how perception works. It depends on how you're conditioned. Now, she's a social worker, so she's got that sort of high level of respect for people and children. So it's like if you're sort of got good friends, you call them brother. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're your brother. So she was calling him a man. Doesn't necessarily mean they were mad. It was the best way she could describe it from her conditioning of that.
I don't know, it just seems a bit dodgy.
Yeah, obviously if you've... Yeah.
Because you wouldn't call like an octopus a man, would you? You wouldn't call like a...
Yeah.
But I know
But say you went from Earth and you've never seen any kind of octopus, say. How would you describe an octopus?
I wouldn't call it a man, I would call it some kind of creature. Or it, or...
Yeah.
But you wouldn't call it a man.
But as I say, that's because your condition, obviously, in the mystery, we sort of look into
Do they know what these aliens look like? Were they greys? Were they Nordic type?
Yes, she. I think later on she describes them.
Because, like Nick was saying, what's the name? Rosenberg, I think. She describes these aliens she saw in 1950 as men, beautiful people. But if you look back, for some reason, you get waves. You get the 50s. Late 50s, mainly sort of like Nordic. You've got the guy from Switzerland, what was his name? He had contact, and he got loads of photographs of those contacts. Is it Maya or somebody like that? I can't remember his name. He describes Nordic type people.
They were early on, weren't they? They were like the first, so
that was the fifth. They're always meeting, talking to you, giving you this, that and the other. That was the 50s. 60s, the greys start sort of coming into the fore. So these are on the cusp of the people in the 60s. So I don't know why, but they go in, and then you get 70s, there's something else, and 80s, there's something else.
But this image was what Barney drew during hypnosis of one of the...
So that's like a grey then, isn't it?
Yeah.
When he's making a visit to the bush.
But as I say, with regards to Betty just calling him a man, it's like, what do you actually, putting yourself in her position, and bear in mind you're in 1961, because even though the sessions were in 1965, she'd actually regressed to 1961. And it was like people had seen UFOs and stuff, and might have seen, but she was social work, so chances are she didn't watch much TV anyway, and people didn't back then anyway. You used to go to the cinema, you know, but
there was a lot of alien films in the 50s, late 50s.
Yeah.
And it was like UFOs were big in the 50s. A lot of people knew about UFOs.
Yeah.
And there's films like UFOs, Sources versus the Earth, the day the Earth stood still, things like that. So there was a lot of knowledge about them, but whether people believed they were real or not was another thing.
I mean, that image there came from Crowley, didn't it?
That what?
That image. It drew land, didn't it? As an alien.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody perceived an alien to look like.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, that was, I'm not quite sure exactly when he did it, but it was the first half of the century, wasn't it? I can't think when he actually did that. Or, anyway, if you hear all these, what's it, they reckon he's the one responsible for opening the portal.
Yeah, yeah. But saying that,
to explain the pictures in the Bible and things in there.
Yeah. But if you sort of research UFOs, you and ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and stuff like that, aren't they? And alien animal figures and stuff. You know.
All at the moment, keep on about is disclosure's closed, disclosure's closed. It's, you look at it.
I thought after 50 years, not supposed to have.
Yeah, but if like you say about the images on the paintings and the Bible and stuff like that, how long ago? If this thing's been happening since, you know, the Bible, 2,000-3,000 years, even more maybe, and say, oh, disclosure's coming, I don't think it's coming because they would have disclosed long before then. And even public pressure, they find ways of diverting, which they're trying to do now. They're trying to divert people from looking at these things. You don't have to go into, there's a site I go onto, and they put up, you've got daily sort of news things, new articles about UFOs, and there's stuff about Pentagon and stuff like that. Go on, you read about it, oh, this is interesting. You go to the comments, every single comment isn't sceptical beyond belief. You think, but they've turned around and said these things exist and they don't know. The American government said these things exist but we don't know what they are. They've shot a few down. You know those ones, was it last year or the year before? One they shot down over Alaska, one they shot down in Canada. Supposedly with balloons.
From China.
From China. No, they didn't know where they were from. One was shot down in Alaska, and one in Canada. And it was so remote they haven't even claimed it yet. They haven't found it yet. I think if you were going, if you shot something down in Alaska or Canada, you'd get there pretty quick to find out who it belonged to, what was on it.
Especially if you didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Find out what it was.
If Putin's sending something up over your country, you want to shoot it, and you shoot it down. You want to find out if there's cameras on there, if there's people on there, if there's whatever. You don't say, oh, it's a bit too far, go walk that way. You've got helicopters, for God's sake. You've got planes. It's a load of crap. But those two they shot down, maybe more. Well, one landed in a lake, frozen lake. No, it's a lake. You can't get it. But land on the ice. It's a bit too far. It's rubbish because they know what they were.
But one of the debunks for this case is the hypnosis tapes, because Betty was interviewed years after and said about what a fun and exciting experience it was. And people are debunking it because they're saying it's incongruent with what was actually... sounded distressed at the and the regression things. But if you imagine, she's actually there, and the regression, she's actually there. So it's a bit like if you imagine going to Alton Towers, going up and down a roller coaster, you sort of your heart's pounding, you're scared, and you sort of commentating on what's I'm that scared and all this stuff. But when the next day you'll be saying, "Oh, that was the greatest day ever, best day of my life, and so much fun."
Skydiving, isn't it? You crap yourself if you've got the plane.
Yeah, exactly.
You go out there and you think, wow.
Yeah. So that debunk is sort of, it's not really a debunk.
Yeah, we're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that, Mark.
Okay,
Everybody,
you're very welcome. Thank you all.